You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
Hello and welcome to the Unexplained Show here at Six Towns Radio. How are you feeling, guests?
We're feeling top notch, thank you.
I'm feeling a bit less than top notch, but I'm laid up, but I'm alright.
Cool. You alright, Debs?
I'm all good, but my mic's not working, so...
We'll get you sorted. Yeah, joining us tonight, we've got two special guests. We've got Layla
Randle-Conde. You can't say my name, can you?
I can't want him flued up. And we've got Chris Stokes, the magician. Thank you for coming in and being our guests. And
very welcome. Thanks for inviting me back.
Yeah, thank you.
Bit of a resident now, aren't you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm getting used to the place now. I'm just a bit concerned about Layla's germs because this place is pretty small, isn't it?
I know I'm flued up as well.
You'll all be infected by the end of the night.
We're going to be
thanks, Layla.
stretch it off by the end of the show, then.
We've got a jam-packed show because I'm also trying to get hold of our USA correspondent Rick Schooler. He's going to be coming on and giving us a bit of information about what's been going on in the US and around the globe on the UFO side of things. But
good.
While we're getting hold of him, I think we should start with Layla. Yeah, you're quite famous at the moment. I was watching you on BBC on Monday.
Do you know what? I'm still kind of buzzing off that. It's really, really weird being on national TV. It's a very strange feeling. I've done TV before, I've done lots of things before, but I've never actually done a big show like this.
What was it, nervy? Being in front of the camera, knowing that it was going to be nationwide, national. Do
you know what? I'm used to cameras, so it didn't bother me as much as it would bother other people. But after I was on this bus for a week. After the first 18 hours, you forget there's a camera there.
What was the show, Layla? Tell us about the show.
Conspiracy Road Trip. So it was on 9 o'clock on Monday, and then it was repeated again on, I think, about 12:30, and it was on again last night. And as far as I know, it might be on tonight. I'm not too sure.
And the theme of that particular episode was?
It was exploring the conspiracy theories around the 7/7 bombings in London.
All right.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I mean, it's something that I followed. I mean, because we got the 9/11. There was a similar kind of theory behind that as well, that the government were behind it and plotted it to hype and going in Iraq for the war.
Yeah.
So that was theory behind that, and I do believe a lot of the theories behind 7/7 is the similar theory.
It's a similar sort of thing. I mean, the main focus of people's attention on the alternative theories are that it was a government plot, that it was propaganda, that the government did it, that it wasn't, it wasn't the people that were found to have done it, it was somebody else and it was the government. So that's people's main kind of theory about it.
The people that were on the bus, there was there four?
There was four participants, and then there was, I didn't realise this at the time actually, but quite a famous comedian. I knew he was a comedian because he was hilarious, but I didn't know he was famous, called Andrew Maxwell, very famous Irish comedian.
And can you give us a little bit of a background of the people on the bus? There was John, wasn't there? He was a true blown conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, there was basically there was two guys, two girls. The two guys were die-hard. I think they would both probably describe themselves as die-hard conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, that was mentioned a few times when they were talking to him.
So they were very, very different characters, but they both were very, very heavily into the conspiracy stuff. And then there was very, very, in complete contrast to that, there was this very, very reserved, very sort of sensible, sensitive, very well-behaved Muslim girl called Davina, and she's only 20, but she, very, very cool girl. So she was in it for the sort of legal angle and the sort of, possibly slightly the religious angle as well. And then there was me, Mouth Almighty. So we were.
I did see you ill, sort of getting a little bit angry with one of them.
Bit tetchy.
Yeah, definitely. But it made the show. It was, real, I suppose. At the end of the day, it was a documentary, and it came across in that kind of style.
Well, do you know what? It was watching it was very, very funny. Actually, I wet myself watching it, and my boyfriend was watching it with me, and we just howled. It's edited in a very, very funny way, and of course, we're not laughing at the events. We're not laughing at, it was an awful kind of... The reason that thing happened was because the whole thing was so stressful. We had it was a wonderful day in terms of how educated we were and what we got to see and who we got to talk to, but it was a horrible day in terms of we heard horrible things. We spoke to people that had been so traumatised, and we spoke to people that had been made very miserable and very unhappy by these events, and we were upset by that, and it was very tense. It's a very long day.
She did get a little bit upset herself, didn't she? The Asian girl,
Davina.
Davina, sorry.
Yeah. No, she. Do you know what? We were all upset because of those events, but people show it in different ways. Davina's a little bit younger. Well, she's quite a lot younger than all of us, really, and it just got to her a little bit, and yeah, she cried. I nearly cried quite a few times.
Okay, so we take the story back to the beginning for those who don't know, haven't seen the documentary and need to get kind of a visual image of what it was about. You started in Leeds.
Yes, we did.
Why did you start in Leeds?
We started in Beeston in Leeds because that's where 3 of the 4 bombers came from. That's where they grew up. So we went and we looked at their houses and we spoke to their neighbours, and we asked them, these guys that did this, first of all, what's it done to your community? It's done terrible things to their community. It's if you sort of think back to when all these events took place and you saw the place that the bombers were from in the newspapers, it looks horrible, doesn't it? It was images of sort of broken cars and horrible back streets and stuff like that. Actually, it's quite a nice place.
Did they make it look worse than what it was?
Yeah, they did. I mean, it's actually a nice place. It's not a posh place, but it's a nice place.
Bentley, would you say? Similar? Have you been to Bentley?
Well, Darren,
not dishing Bentley.
You can't say that. You may have some Bentley listeners. You couldn't ever.
Well, do you know what? Some of the places.
Bentley's all right. I'm just trying to paint a picture, and
but do you know what? Bits of Stoke aren't the prettiest places in the country.
There's worse places.
But the people are absolutely mint. And it's the same in Beeston. Not the brilliant area, not the best area ever, but the people are really nice, really friendly.
Real, probably,
really
people.
Genuine, lovely people. Yeah. And it was quite an integrated community, particularly before this event. So, the Muslim people, everybody else that lived there, were kind of getting on pretty well. Yeah. And it was all okay.
I saw that because they actually interviewed one of the neighbours, and she lived across the road from the 3 of them? Was it the 3 of them that she knew?
Yeah, 3 of them lived in very close proximity to each other, and the other one lived a little bit further away.
I mean, what's your take on the characters of the bomb? I don't know the names. Sorry to say, but can you remember the names?
I can remember the names. Do you know what my take on the characters? I didn't know anything about this particular aspect before the first day, and on the first day we were taken to Beeston, and we were told what they were like, and we were told by people that knew them and had seen them in their parents' chip shop and things like that. And the first day I was like, these people are so normal and integrated with everybody else and not separate from people. How can they possibly have been the bombers?
Yeah, because I was saying to Debbie earlier, I think in my kind of image of a bomber would be someone who's recluse, who sits and got a shrine and prays to the whichever god it is they pray to, because it's if they die in vain for doing that kind of monstrosity, then they actually go to a higher, more powerful place, don't they? Their religion, these terrorist people, that's why they do it.
Well, there's
that's supposed to be why they do it.
There is a belief among some people that if you if you commit an atrocity and it's a religious act, that you're rewarded for it.
That's it.
And that's kind of what was going on here. Do you know what? You're kind of right and wrong at the same time. It's a very weird thing. I didn't understand what I'd seen until I'd spoke to the psychologist. So later on in the week, we got to speak to a psychologist that specialises in this particular type of terrorism, and he explained how these people are different from, for example, IRA terrorists. and how this particular type of attack is so unique, and how it happens, and how people can appear very, very normal and sort of chilled out and just part of things, part of the community on the surface, and then secretly have all this stuff going on, and then go out and do these things. For example, these people's families didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And this is what creates a lot of the suspicion, of course, isn't it? Because if on the face of it, they have conventional lives, and this is going on in the background, it's going to feed the kind of racism that we're trying to avoid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to make people very, very fearful. And the vast majority of just ordinary religious people just going about their lives were completely horrified by this, and we're not part of it at all. But it kind of makes everybody look a bit suspicious.
It does. And what effect has it had on the local community? You said it was pretty convivial before the attack. What's it like there now?
Well, I think there's a very telling moment in the show when they ask one of the neighbours, "What's the community like round here?" And she just says, "Well, it was better before this."
So it's caused that divide amongst them,
Which exists to this day, presumably. Does it? And are the measures sort of ongoing to try and repair the damage?
You know what? This tragedy ripped into that community and ruined it. That's the message we got. It completely messed it up, and it's going to take a long time for that to heal.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the lads, he was a sports science, wasn't he? He was actually, he must have been learning how to sort of go in and teach other people sports. He was a trainee, he'd done the science side of it, which I don't know what that means. If anyone could elaborate on what that means, a sports science.
I think it's just the physiology of the body,
and how the body
moves,
all right,
that
okay.
kind of stuff,
Yeah. So sort of, if you went and wanted training, he will give you a diet which would suit the training that you were going for. So it was obviously someone who had how could I put it, a good outlook on life, and thought he was going to go somewhere.
He was well educated,
well educated.
Do you know what? They were all very, very good lads. They were good lads. They were religious. And they were. One of them in particular was very involved in his local community. He helped people that were on drugs and things like that. He was a good lad in that respect. And these people were not dropouts. They weren't drug addicts. They weren't. One or two of them were actually involved in crime, in credit card fraud and things like that, or suspected of that.
Was one working with the police, Layla? Did I hear that right?
I believe one of them was working sort of with the local community and sort of with people that had had drug problems and things like that, which maybe is what you've heard.
But as I understand it, and I didn't see the programme unfortunately, but the conspiracy theorist claimed that it wasn't a Muslim atrocity, which is the official kind of verdict, that it was something quite different. What do they actually believe?
Quite a few of the conspiracy theorists believe that the people that set off the bombs were not these four people, or at least not intentionally. Some people believe that these four lads were patsies, they were stooges, and they were employed by the government to run a training exercise. Go and, we'll give you 20 grand or whatever if you go and sit on this bus and pretend you're a terrorist just for this exercise. Don't tell anybody. And,
it's funny that you should mention that, Layla, because I was having a think, and I was throwing some ideas at you wanted Deb about, I mean, what gets me is three random lads get in the car.
Yeah, it was four.
Sorry, four lads. Just like, say we were going to London tomorrow. We get in the car. Yeah. We go down to London. Do they split up when they get down to London? Because I saw the bit where you get on a train and you time yourselves getting from the car onto the train, and then at King's Cross. Do they all split up?
Yes, they do. They get to King's Cross, and then just as you're walking out of the, the bit where the train pulls in, they have a group hug. They're caught on CCTV having a big hug. They all go off in separate directions. Three of them go on the tube. The other one kind of goes on the tube and then comes out, wanders around for a bit. And this is the guy I sort of followed. I kind of played his part.
Yeah, because you all, each of you on the bus trip, you had you were allocated to follow the footsteps of each individual, the lads, weren't you? You were, to see if you could actually do it within the time frame that the police, statement came out with.
And we managed it. I mean, one of the theories is that the times were faked. So
because one of the times did come out wrong. But just getting back to it, so they go out. So if we went out tomorrow, and then the bombs go off.
Mm-hmm.
So what actually happened? Did the police investigate the scene, and did they find documentation of the people on the bus, the lads on the bus? How did they come to the conclusion that the lads actually blew up the bus?
Well, do you know what? It was very confused for a long time. Nobody knew what had happened.
Okay.
And nobody knew it was a bomb at first. And even when they suspected it was a bomb, they didn't really want to say it was a bomb unless they kind of knew that it was, because of the, the extra chaos that would cause. So, you had all these reports that it was a power surge, that it was a train had crashed into a wall, all of this kind of, excuse me, all of this kind of stuff. It was very confused. So they didn't kind of work out who these people were for a long time.
How did they come to the conclusion that these lads actually blew up the train and the buses?
Do you know what? That's still a matter of sort of. There is an explanation, but most people don't believe it.
Now, the police must have looked at CCTV footage and remember throughout the country how much CC footage there is.
Yeah.
There must be cars going from Leeds, going from Stoke, going from Liverpool down to London.
Yeah.
How come they investigated them 4 lads?
Well, do you know what? Excuse me, sorry, I'm all laid up today. I've just got a cough.
These are questions that are firing in my head.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. One of the things they used to identify these 4 lads was documentation, and this is where it all gets a bit weird, because people immediately say, well, how come this person's bank card is completely intact when they're blown to bits all over the place?
Ah, good point.
So there's that kind of thing.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
Because I saw the bus actually get blown up, and I'm telling you, from that explosion, I don't think there'll be a credit card left after a bus roof can be blown up.
Do you know what? That was so upsetting to see.
Yeah, I can imagine, because you've gone on. When was the bus blown up? Was that the end of the trip, or was it? That
was on the Thursday. So
on the first day, so you were shown basically what happens at the end. Basically, you were shown the explosives that were used.
Yeah.
Would they have to be in a controlled circumstances? Would the person making the bomb have to exactly know what he's doing? Because
yes, they would.
It's a homemade bomb.
Yeah.
And they were given. Was there four bombs that they made?
Yes, there was 4 bombs. That's a lot of explosives.
Where would they be able to test that kind of explosive before they make them?
Yeah. Do you know what? This is an interesting thing. Because if you mess about, when I was a kid, I used to mess about with things that blew up. Nothing on that scale whatsoever. I'm talking blowing boxes of matches up and things like that.
I think we've all had a bit to go with the sugar and whatever it is. And
particularly if you blow up in the countryside, you learn how to do stupid things like that. Yeah. And it's very, very dangerous, and you will blow your arms and legs off if you mess about with anything more dangerous than that.
I mean, the guy that did it, he got licenses. He'd been messing with it since he was a child. He was
he was wonderful. He was. I wish we just had a whole show on him, because he was hysterical. And he said, "Count my fingers, count my toes. I've never blown anything off."
Yeah.
Because I'm sensible and I'm cautious.
Can I just be clear about this conspiracy theory, because I'm still not absolutely sure.
Yeah.
Are we saying that, are the conspiracy theorists saying that the 4 were patsies because it was actually a government plot to what? Justify a war on Iraq? Is that what it was all about?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Ah, I see. Okay, yeah, I've got you now.
Yeah, that was the bottom line.
Which is pretty much what the 9/11 conspiracy theorists said.
So all of the other smaller conspiracy theories kind of come from that.
Right, I see. Okay.
And it's funnily enough, I know it might not matter really, but looking at it from putting all the answers together, the mayor of New York was actually in London.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
And also, another question that fires in my head is they were also running a mock terrorist.
Now this is the really
exercise.
Interesting. This is a really
Chris,
juicy
this is the bit that gets me.
Yeah.
There's a mock terrorist exercise going on in London the same time as the bombs go off. So they're already. The police must have been aware, and the fire service and the people behind the CCTV cameras must have been on high alert to be looking out for suspicious.
Yeah, well, they were certainly on high alert. That was no secret, was it?
Is that what went on the exercise?
Do you know what this exercise?
What did you get from that?
Do you know what? It's such an interesting thing. Yeah. It's not at all how it appears. Okay, so I'm gonna test this out on you. Okay, so what I want you to do is just give me the first thing that comes to your head. Say what feels right. Okay.
Okay.
If I say training exercise to you, what do you think that means?
I believe that the police would be informed of things that are going on, to be aware, just to see their reaction time if there was an actual terrorist attack.
Yeah. So the police would
similar
be
to the Olympic Games terrorist. Exercise before, with the speedboats on the Thames, the helicopters, everyone on high alert, surveillance,
the ground-to-air missiles.
Am I wrong?
And would you think that there would be the people that were just there normally doing the jobs anyway would be on high alert, or would there be extra people, or how do you think that would be?
I don't think there'd be extra people, because to have an exercise, it could just be a random attack. They wouldn't know that that's going on, so they couldn't deploy extra people because they wouldn't know it's happening. So I would imagine that just the people involved in surveillance would be on high alert.
Well, do you know what the actual exercise was?
Nope.
It was 6 people sitting in a room going, who do we call first? Who do we call second? Who do we call third?
Right, okay.
That's what the exercise was. The chap that was on TV talking about it is a chap called Peter Power.
Yep.
And his company is not the police. It's not the ambulance, it's a private company. And what they do, they are consultants. So all they do is have meetings and they talk about stuff and they arrange things and they go, you do this, you do that. This happens first, this happens second, this happens third.
Yeah.
If this happens, here's a whole chain of command and here's what to do. So the exercise was 6 people sitting in a room, theoretically, not really, going, okay, we've got about 1,000 people that need to know about this now. Who do we call first? Who do they call? Who do they call? That's what the exercise was. Now, does that change your view of... This is just the very first kind of point.
I wouldn't really call that an exercise. I would call it a meeting.
It's a meeting. So the fact that he's on TV going, yes, we were running an exercise with all the, that's him buffing his halo. That's him showing off about his company. This is his moment to shine. And he did it he didn't do anything wrong.
No.
But just the way it was worded and the way it was said, he probably didn't write that. His PR people were probably going, yes, go for it. And he executed it perfectly, and it came across very dramatically. But actually, the reality of it was not dramatic.
So there was the public services weren't informed that there was actually an alert. It wasn't on that level.
No, it wasn't on that level.
It was just a few people, 4 or 5 people, maybe in a room, talking about what would happen if we had a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the first point. The second point is the weird coincidence. How did they get exactly the same tube stations? Because they said, it's almost precisely the same stations. And actually, if you look at it, it isn't. I haven't got time to go into, all this, that, and the other about why. What didn't happen is that Peter Power didn't sit there in a really big, high-powered, important meeting with all the police waiting around and everything going, right, this station, and this station are going to be hit. Get ready for it. That didn't happen. It just sounds like it did.
Something else, Chris, as well, because Chris doesn't, it's quite good that we've got Chris, because Chris, you haven't seen it, have you? I know you have.
Unfortunately, no. I wish you'd let me know, actually, Daz.
Sorry about that.
It's all right, I'll let you off. I'll forgive you this time. But no, I haven't seen it. I know about conspiracy theories surrounding 9/11.
Yeah.
And I was kind of vaguely aware of a conspiracy theory surrounding 7/7, but I didn't know the detail. And I would definitely watch the programme had I known it was on. But it'll be repeated, as you've said, so I will be watching it. Yeah.
But getting back to what happened, Chris, as well, this is another something else that I was asking myself. The lads get out of the car, they walk to the station. Do you all get individual tickets, do they, or do they all get on the same train to go to the point after where they hug? They get to the King's Cross, is it? Right,
they take the car, they get on the station. They all travel on the same train.
Yeah, and you could actually do that within the time frame that came out.
We tried it and we actually naffed it up. Because we had a bit of confusion over the ticket machine. We couldn't get the ticket machine to work, so we actually missed the first train. We had to catch the second one. We still managed to do it in time.
Now, didn't the first statement that the police came out with get the train times mixed up? Was that a mistake? Yeah,
that was a mistake, and it wasn't put right very quickly.
But where did that mistake come from?
Do you know what? I didn't actually explore that bit.
Okay.
But it was a mistake. And actually, what you've got to remember here, when there's a mistake, in theory, nobody should make mistakes because this is so important.
It's very important. I mean, we're talking about how many people got killed and how many people were injured?
There were 50, not including the bombers. There were 52 people that died, I believe. and many, many more, hundreds more injured.
So, they have made a mistake there. But mistakes happen.
They do, and they should be put right quickly. Sometimes they're not.
But there is a major mistake that I do find that shouldn't happen, and they should be continuously planned, and that is a CT camera, Chris, actually broke down.
Yeah.
They haven't got any CC footage of the lads leaving the station, going to the destinations throughout the city. Is that correct, Layla?
Yeah, the CCTV cameras did break down, and they didn't work.
So that's two mistakes. All the money that's been put into the surveillance system, and yet they managed to follow these lads from Leeds. They're quite sure it's these lads, but they can't follow them from King's Cross in our major city.
Yeah, I think the cameras were down for 20... Well, the cameras are going all day, and sometimes they break down for periods of time.
I mean, I'm not trying to point the finger or anything. I'm just looking at the
It's
facts.
dodgy, isn't it? It's not good, whatever way you look at it.
But cameras do break down, don't they? I guess.
They do. And especially, the ones on the underground are kind of a deterrent rather than, everybody knows they're there. Nobody knows if they're working or not,
I mean, that to me is just... That to me... I don't know. I haven't got... Well, I can say things, but I don't think I want to say it on air. It's just
it's
negligent. It's a coincidence. I mean... Why haven't they got backup systems? All this money ploughed into surveillance. We live off surveillance.
Yeah.
And there's not one camera in the city that can relate them people to prove that they blow them budgies up.
Yeah, it's...
It doesn't make sense to me, Layla.
No, it doesn't. And it, by itself, it's not great. By itself, it's like, why the hell did that happen? That's awful.
So really, the money that's been invested into the surveillance system doesn't work when it's convenient.
Well, it's failed at the worst possible time, hasn't it? It really has.
I can't think of any other time that it could fail any worse.
No, it's massively. But
there's no doubt in legal terms that these guys were responsible. There's no question that anyone else could have been involved other than these four guys.
There's lots and lots of questions, but the official version says these guys definitely did it.
Yeah.
And the official version isn't... I mean, there is a belief that the official version is just some people huddled in a room going, right, what do we say? And actually, because there isn't an official inquiry, and there's a very good reason why there isn't an official inquiry, and it's not a dodgy reason, it's there's several reasons, and you can kind of understand it. You might not agree with it, but you understand it. But there's an inquest which details everything second by second, and it's massively, massively detailed, and involves a lot of people, and would be very difficult to fake.
Yeah. And that process was gone through, of course.
Yes, it was, yeah. And it's on the internet, you can go read it. Yeah. And lots of conspiracies don't actually go read this thing.
No, anything that challenges their view would be unpalatable, wouldn't it?
So after they come out of King's Cross, there's four of them, which directions did they go, and how did they know that they went in these directions if there was no surveillance?
Well, do you know what? The surveillance, the CCTV cameras failed at particular points for a particular period of time.
Okay.
So there is CCTV footage, and there's also eyewitnesses. So we spoke to one of the eyewitnesses.
Yes,
and,
she did. She was on the bus once. Was it a brother?
No, this lady was on, I think it was the Edgware Road. I don't know if I'm 100% right about that. But she said... She saw one of the bombers.
Well, she could have seen one of the bombers.
No, she saw it. She recognised him from his picture afterwards.
But so he could just be walking past.
Yeah, well, she nearly got in the carriage with him.
Right.
So she knew what carriage he got into, and she nearly got in the carriage with him.
Right.
He looked at her.
Yeah.
And she didn't really know. He didn't stare at her too weirdly or anything, I don't think. But he looked at her and she looked at him like you do look at people on the tube.
Yeah. So he could just be an innocent person getting on the bus.
He could, in theory. But she didn't get into his carriage because there was another young man in that carriage with the bomber or suspected bomber, who was a bit weird and freaked her out a little bit. So she got, he was a bit starey, he was a bit weird.
And he didn't get on the bus?
He got, no, this was in the train, the tube.
Sorry.
So the bomber, or the suspected bomber, got onto the tube carriage, and this other man got on with him, who just happened to be there at the time. And he freaked this lady out a little bit, and she didn't get onto that carriage, she got onto the next carriage. And she says that's why she's still alive. So everybody in that carriage, that's where the bomb went off. So we know from her that the bomb went off in this particular carriage with this particular young man.
So there was one on the train, and then
there's three on the train. So 3 bombs went off in 3 different tubes.
Oh, right. How many on the bus? Was
One.
There was only one bus?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting the picture now. So there was
Yeah.
3 on the tube
Yeah.
and 1 on the bus.
So each bomber
Yeah.
went in a different direction and blew up a different tube train, and they blew them up in the middle of the tunnel.
Right.
So when they blew up, we had smoke coming out of each end. So, all the reports and it was maximum confusion.
Yeah.
So if you blow a tube train up in the middle of a tunnel, smoke and debris and things like that will come out of both ends.
Right.
And that will cause massive confusion because you don't really know which station has been hit. So for a while, there was reports of 6 bombs on the tube instead of 3. Because it looked as though 6 stations had been hit.
The bus actually drove to outside the medical centre, didn't it, Lily?
It did.
Is that a big medical centre in London, or is it
Well,
just
do you know what? That was my part in the show, and that was the bit that I found dead weird.
Yeah, because you actually followed the one, the bomber who got on the bus, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you would have walked, did you follow the same route?
I followed the same route, and I tried to do everything that he did in the time that he did it.
Okay. Was it a major... would you say that there was a lot of surveillance cameras if you were walking through there? Does it look the type of place?
Well, do you know what? He walked all over the place. Do you want me to take you through it really quickly, what he did?
Please, carry on, Layla. Rick can't make it. He's just texting. He's at work, so unfortunately...
Oh, okay.
So we have got, a lot of time on this, so, if we can, try and extend this and...
no problem. I mean,
are you all right with that, Chris?
Yeah,
Debbie?
no problem. Yeah, absolutely great.
And we have got some questions as well, so...
Oh, good, okay.
Should we play a bit of a track and then have a break and then come back to it?
Yeah,
or do you want to carry on?
Have a break.
I'm sure Layla needs a drink after that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I do.
6 Towns Radio.
Okay, where did we get to?
We got to the bus bomber.
That's it, around the medical centre.
Yeah, and I was just going to take you on a little, very brief walk through what I did to follow in his footsteps.
Yeah, we've had a bit of a drink and we're breaking, we're ready again. Let's take us down that road, paint the picture.
Okay,
Layla.
so there was 4 bombers, and one of them ended up, it looks as though he ended up not completing the mission that he'd kind of set out to do, and he ended up somewhere else instead, and that's how the bus ended up being blown up. And the conspiracy theory was that this bus was blown up deliberately in that particular place because of a particular reason. And the official version of events was something went wrong. He came out of where he was supposed to be. He got on the bus randomly. It ended up somewhere random because of the confusion, and he decided to blow it up at this particular kind of unpredetermined time.
There's a lot of things that are going wrong, isn't there? A lot of, but things do go wrong.
They do, and what actually was supposed to have gone wrong in this case, so this is the theory, okay?
Because you took this, you took the footsteps, you got off King's Cross and you went to, do you think it was a random bus you just got on?
Well, I don't really believe in things being random. There's a reason for everything. Okay, and I'm not being spiritual here. I'm being kind of, a bit scientific. Logical, yeah. So you could say it was a random bus, and then again, it wasn't a random bus.
Okay.
Basically, what appears to have happened is the detonator didn't go off. So we have eyewitnesses that have survived a very close blast and have seen 1 or 2 of the bombers actually pulling the cord and exploding.
So he's on the bus and he went to detonate and it didn't go off.
No. This is the reason he ended up on the bus is more random. He wasn't supposed to be on the bus. He wasn't
where was he supposed to be?
He was supposed to be on a tube.
Oh, I see. So they were all to detonate on the tube if they were given instructions.
Yeah.
If they were given instructions, I don't know.
So
do you think it would have had to been planned weeks, months?
Do you know what? This whole thing would have taken... If it happened, the way the official version said it happened, it would have taken a long time. It would have taken a lot of indoctrination.
Like a military operation, kind of.
Yes, and very carefully planned, very carefully handled. It would have taken a lot of time, a lot of money, and
a lot of money.
Oh God, yeah.
So these lads living in this poor community, they would have had to how much would it cost to make a bomb, Layla? Roughly?
Do you know what to make the bomb or to make the 4 bombs? They rented a property.
Right.
That became the bomb factory that we saw photographs of on the news.
Oh, that wasn't their houses?
No, because it's so poisonous. What they were doing was they were boiling peroxide.
Okay.
And
how much peroxide would it be suspiciously amount if you work in a peroxide factory?
Do you know what? It's very difficult, or in theory it's very difficult to buy big quantities of peroxide. So this is the stuff that you dye your hair with.
Yeah. Is it special
it's
peroxide
bleach.
or is it just?
It's hair bleach.
So it's just household.
No, what
No.
you dyeing your hair with?
Oh, sorry.
So you're not a girl, so you probably don't know this. But there's
that stuff that smells and
Yes.
the stuff that smells horrible,
Yeah.
and it's a very nasty chemical. You get it on your skin, it makes your skin burn, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Very, very potent, nasty chemical.
So how
And
much would be needed roughly?
Do you know what? Tons of it, but
Really?
tons
That
of
much?
it. Yeah, but these devices were very small, as you saw.
Do
So-
about as big as a breeze block.
Do you know what we
bounce?
used? Do you know what we used to actually house the bomb? Do you know what that container was?
Tell me.
That was the box that we were eating biscuits out of on the bus.
But so it's
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Lunchbox, bigger
yeah.
size kind of.
Yeah, so a big lunch box, basically, a
Right.
big biscuit box. So the bombs needed
So
to
why
be...
would you need so much peroxide?
Because...
would that fill it?
do you know what?
fit in
A
it?
bomb isn't fire. You know,
No.
a bomb is a chemical reaction, and it needs to happen very quickly.
Okay.
Okay.
So what about the detonating device? How
Well-
does that work?
Well, do
If
you know
you
what? You need a very small explosion to make this big explosion.
Ah,
So the
right,
detonator's a very, very small explosion. The big explosion,
Like a flint, maybe.
Yeah,
kind
like
of
okay. So say you've got a lot of petrol. Now the bomb isn't made out of petrol, but say you've got a lot of
Yeah.
petrol. You
Just
only
for
need
argument's
or
sake.
gas. If you've got a gas leak, you only need the tiniest little spark to blow everything up.
Mm-hmm.
So the detonator is a very small spark, and
Similar
you-
to a flint on a
kind
lighter,
of, yeah.
maybe?
And you're asking about the peroxide. So the
Yeah,
peroxide,
yeah.
it needs to be concentrated.
How would you concentrate it?
You boil it, so you take all
Oh,
of
I
the
see.
water out.
Right.
You can't buy peroxide that strong. You can't
Is this
buy
kind
it.
of information on the internet? Where
Oh,
would
yeah,
you
yeah,
find
this
it?
is-
It is.
This is common knowledge.
Wow, this gets more and more interesting.
Yeah.
doesn't
Now
it?
this is
You know.
it's an
Crazy.
incredibly dangerous thing to do in all sorts of ways. You know.
So you're putting your life at risk making it.
massively. So you have to know exactly what you were doing. So this is where the
Would you need a chemist or?
well, you just need to know exactly what you were doing. So you would need these guys were kind of trained how to do this. There was people handling these guys. They didn't just suddenly decide to do this one day. They didn't go, oh, right, next week we're going to blow London up.
Okay, yeah.
They were handled, they were trained, and they were shown how to make these quite sophisticated homemade bombs. So
Wow,
that's
it's-
where the money comes
know.
in. So they had to rent a property. They
How
had
much
to,
would it cost, Layla? Say for
Well,
one bomb, roughly, if you do
you
know,
know
that
what?
information.
Actually, buying the ingredients isn't that expensive.
Okay.
Okay, so buying peroxide isn't that expensive. Black pepper isn't that expensive. The few other ingredients that they used are not that expensive. What's expensive is renting a property.
And how long would they have to rent the property for to make it, roughly?
Do you know what? I can't remember. We were given a lot of information all at the same time. I
I would
can't actually
imagine
remember
that you'd
bit.
have to rent it
But-
for about 6 months. Would you have to build kind of, is it a lab? Is it kind of a lab
Well,
you'd have to build?
It's called a bomb factory in the news, and what it is it's a house. It's a property
Mm-hmm.
that you boil this very, very poisonous chemical inside, and
Okay.
you've got to make sure that nobody comes round and goes, "What the hell's going on in here? Why
Okay.
does it stink of peroxide? Why are the flowers outside dying because of all the poisonous gas coming out the window?" Do you know
So
what I mean?
they would have to wear protective clothing.
Yeah, they would have to be in there with protective clothing on. They would have to be in there for a long time watching this mixture to make sure it was, you can't just leave it on the stove and pop out for a brew. It's dangerous stuff.
How
It's
long-
hard to find that these guys who were like pillars of the community, this, that, and the other, are doing this on the side. It's just
Yeah, so nobody knew, so they would have to rent a property and pay all the bills.
Where would
pay
the money
council
come from,
tax.
do you think, Layla,
Well-
to set this kind of...
Well, this is, terrorism costs a lot of money.
Okay.
And so what we're getting into now is one of the actual real conspiracies, I believe, of the whole thing. And
So
it's not-
you've got a bit of a bit of conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
you've
well-
got your own theory behind it.
Yeah, do you know what? There's wild conspiracy theories, and there's, ones that kind of add up a little bit. And one of the big mistakes that... Now, this is all conjecture. This is all looking back and going, oh, that looks like it went wrong. That looks like it was kind of
Could
covered
I
up,
just stop
but-
you and say
yeah.
this? Could it be that the inside job could have been finding these guys, giving them the money and saying you're going to go down London and blow it up, and that could be the...
That's one of the theories, yeah.
So it could still come from the people behind, like whoever it would be, Illuminati, the businessmen, the people, the war makers. It could still come from them if they like...
Well, do you know what wasn't addressed in the show?
it
was-
could be... That's
yeah.
That's very good.
Do you know...
point.
it's just assumed quite a lot that it's one particular group of people that's funding this, that's doing it, and actually we don't really explore that very much, do we?
What's your theory then?
My theory?
Yeah, sorry.
Well, do you know what? This isn't my theory, this isn't my pet theory, this is what I was told and we were told by the father of the youngest victim. Basically, a couple of the bombers, one in particular, was wanted by the local police for credit card fraud, and his car was bugged and so on, and so they were trailing him and following him for this, really rather minor crime. And they kind of got the impression that he was involved in bigger things, that maybe he was involved in terrorism. So they decided to tail him and to follow him, and to hopefully in the hope of a big collar.
So that's why they were following him.
Yeah,
getting back to
so no, this is the police we're talking about here. MI5 is a completely different story. They were also interested in this person. They're interested in lots of people, but they were very interested in this guy. And if the police and MI5 didn't have this kind of traditional rivalry, if they shared information with each other freely, maybe they would have put two and two together and gone, right, he's looking a bit dangerous. We know terrorism costs a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they would have added everything up together and just nicked him. Maybe that would have happened.
Interesting.
But we don't know.
Yeah.
So.
It's, do you think there is some suspicious behind it, or are you happy with the explanation that came out on the documentary?
Do you know what? I don't
the
believe.
End game of it.
I don't trust the government.
You don't?
But I don't think they blew us up.
Okay.
I don't believe that. There's no evidence for that. Every single bit of something that looked like evidence has turned out to be just not that at all.
No, I mean,
so
Tony Blair was in power at the time, wasn't he? I mean, there might be sort of shadow government, shadow people that actually do these things, and the government not know about it.
Do you know, there's I think that goes on a little bit in the US. The US is set up quite differently to us. And also there's things like... do you know what? There's things that go on that we don't know about. There's things that go on that people in government and that kind of stuff don't know about. But this is such a huge thing, and it affects so many people, and it's it's expensive, it's complicated, it's all of those things. I don't believe that version of events at all. I don't believe that's true, because it just doesn't make any sense. I can't see who would benefit and who would gain. The people that are supposed to benefit and gain from this actually really don't.
Well, you could say that, but then again, you could say, well, it increases the public's view on, the terrorists out there, we must do something about it. Come on, and they're all for let's go and go over in Iraq. Was it Iraq? Sorry, Iran.
Yeah.
Iraq, and sort of continue on the, because I mean, we've got sort of young men out there and women dying every day, haven't we? And really, I think I follow neighbours, men, we don't really want war. I mean, I don't know about, I can't speak for everybody, but I mean,
do you know what? Most people do. Some people really do want war. Some people really do want us to go.
There you go. Some people do want war.
Yeah.
So would they not do anything in their power to make war?
Well, blowing up your own citizens, causing a disaster that really, it was in London, but actually it was a national thing. It affected loads of people. But so that's the most extreme thing I can think of. And there's easier ways to achieve that aim, and there's cheaper ways to achieve that, and there's less risky ways to achieve that aim. So there's no reason for it.
Sending people to war, I think. Even so, you're signing yourself away if there is a war to death anyway, aren't you?
I don't know if a lot of soldiers would agree with that. I mean, it's a huge risk. It's
a risk. That's what I mean. There is a possibility of being shot or being blown up. So I mean, really, the government are funding themselves to go into the army, and with the possibility of being blown up. So they've got that on their conscience anyway.
Well, if the government have got a conscience, then they're not going to go and blow up their own citizens, are they? So. But
if they've got a conscience, wouldn't they not send our troops into a dangerous place where they could get blown up? Would they not prevent that?
Do you know what? I don't think the government really is something that has a conscience.
I know it's a big argument, and that I'm just getting to the point. Well, if they'll send our troops over into a dangerous place with the possibility of getting blown up by a bomb, then to blow a few people up in London, 50 people, is nothing to the amount of people that have been killed in the war.
Do you know what? It's I see your point, but I don't really think it works like that.
I think Layla's point is that there just isn't. There's no evidence for
Yeah.
the conspiracy theorists' argument. I know they.
Well, they cover it up, wouldn't they, Chris? They wouldn't want people to think, oh, there is this going on, because then it'd be like, whoa, they wouldn't want that to people to.
No,
know
they
that, would
wouldn't. But I think the evidence against it being a conspiracy is also kind of overwhelming, as well. It's not just that there's no evidence; it's that there's evidence that it's complete nonsense as well. So
I mean, don't forget, this thing happens with every major event that happens in the world. Doesn't it? Whether it's the death of Princess Diana, men landing on the moon, 9/11. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's a momentous event.
Yeah, I think it's a bit different with people being blown up, though, to people landing on the moon and it hasn't happened.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the mindset that can't accept official verdicts on things.
Yeah,
I
see what you mean. Luke Francis.
And always have to have an alternative